Hi guys, welcome to the DevXP channel. My name is Seth Samuel, and today we're going to be doing something really special. Um, like I said in the previous video, we're going to be having an interview with Umar Coat. For those of you that don't know who Umar Coat is, you must be really new to tech scene and everything because if you have been following social media, especially tech scene social media, you know who Umar Coat is. So it's best to hear it from the horse's mouth. So please, Umar, introduce yourself for those who don't know who you are.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me, Seth. My name is Umar Abu. I am currently a software engineer at Microsoft. I also have a social media channel where I make videos about programming and basically everything programming, anything I find interesting from, ways to build mobile application, computer science algorithms, just anything I find interesting, I try to find a way to share it. That's what happens on there. But yeah, that's me.
And you forgot the Microsoft part.
Yes, I am a software engineer at Microsoft. Yes,
Yeah,
I work at Microsoft. Yeah.
yeah, that's very important. Yeah, because
Yeah.
for those of you that think that we are still small, you have everything. We are big. We are now dealing with Microsoft engineers. So glad to have you here. So please tell us how you got into tech and how your journey started basically.
Absolutely. So I went to school at Iowa State University, which is a science and technology university in Iowa. I started off in aerospace engineering, and after a few years in aerospace engineering, I was bored. It wasn't as interesting to me anymore. And once I figured out the physics engineering behind flights, it was kind of like knowing how a magic trick was done. And so I decided to switch to a major that wouldn't bore me, something that was continuously evolving, something where I could work in various industries, right? Do different things at various times in multiple places. And the clear option was, software engineering. So I switched my major in my second to the last year of school to software engineering. Ended up having to stay 2 extra years in school, but it was definitely worth it for, doing something that I was passionate about. So did that, switched, did a few internships here and there, and then finally landed at Microsoft where I'm currently working.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's a really nice journey. The next
Yeah.
skill step is just a follow up to this question. So if you had the chance
Mhm.
to start all over again, what would you change?
What would I change?
Or what did you do better, basically?
What would I do? I think I would continue to hone down. I would do so. I think what helped me stand out at the time when I was a student, especially trying to get internships as an international student at the time, and trying to prove my worth to employers because um, they have to pay more to hire you since you're not a U.S. permanent resident or a citizen. I had to essentially prove that I was worth whatever they were going to pay. I had to essentially be better than my peers, and what I did to do that was to hone down on projects, right? So I was building products and software similar to what the companies themselves were making. I was doing it in a way that almost seemed like I was a co-worker with them. But that's because I loved what I was doing. And so I think I would hone down on that even more. It helped me to be above my peers at the time, in the sense that, during career fairs, when I'm talking to employers, they would, instead of talking to like the recruiter, they would have me talk to an engineer because sometimes they wouldn't be understanding what I was saying. And so I think, yeah, doing that, maybe having a few more projects deployed. I didn't start deploying projects until towards the end, but then just doing that, I think I would have done that slightly differently. But otherwise, with the journey, I don't think there's anything I would have changed. Maybe start software engineering sooner instead of aerospace, but I also had my reasoning for going into aerospace. I love planes. I still love them. So yeah,
I think that's the passion we share. I wanted to also be a
yeah,
pilot. Yeah, but
yeah.
at some point.
Same thing. I wanted to be a pilot. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to fly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's very good. So what are some of the tools, framework, libraries, AI tools you use to for your day-to-day work? Let's know what Microsoft working for Microsoft is like.
Yeah. Let me see. So in terms of tools, I currently work a lot with Python. I work in the networking space within Microsoft. I help automate Microsoft's network. So essentially, wherever there's a Microsoft presence in the world, there are network devices, routers, firewalls, switches, things that essentially help power Microsoft's network. And I work a lot in automating that space. And with that comes a lot of working with Python. So tools for Python, I use VS Code. That's a
That's the default.
classic, straightforward. This thing, yeah, it works. It works. I also work a lot with cloud services like Azure. I specifically do a lot with Azure. So yeah, for AI tools, I use GitHub Copilot a lot. It's a GitHub product which is underneath Microsoft. So it's integrated into Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. So it's very simple and straightforward to, you know, either copy a block of, sorry, as I'm writing unit test, it'll just, for example, as I'm writing unit test, it'll just, kind of like pre-fill everything and you just press tab and then, what you're writing to test for is already there. And so all you gotta do is just, read through it, make sure it makes sense, um, add a few more cases, run it to work. So that's mostly what I use on a day-to-day basis at work.
Yeah. I
I
think
think,
a
uh,
lot of
uh,
people, sorry, sorry,
yeah, I
continue.
was gonna say a lot of people expect it to be a lot of people expect it to be different, expect me to be using all the crazy tools, but in reality, it's the same tools that and that I would have used if I wasn't in Microsoft. I think I'm just using it to do stuff specific to Microsoft. It's not so far different. Maybe the way of writing the code is different because you're building for an enterprise, but the tools themselves are very similar.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are familiar with Top Copilot. I think it was the one that pioneered the whole coding AI tools. Yeah. I remember starting
Absolutely,
with it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on to the next question. Okay. YouTube or working for a company? Which one pays more and which do you prefer? Now that's the major question.
Um, So with YouTube, it depends on how big you are and how big you get and the money you get from AdSense and stuff like that. Currently, working for a company definitely pays more. I don't think I'm at the point in YouTube where I'm making enough money to not work for a company, right? So
Mm.
I think working for a company or whatever company definitely pays more. But with YouTube, as you get more subscribers, as you start getting more views, then at some point in time, YouTube will start paying more, especially for the amount of work that you're putting in, right? So say you make a video, that video can get maybe a huge amount of views and then you didn't get paid. But then that video can also be making you money for the next year and a half, depending on how up to date it's, right? Not how up to date, depending on how current the video is, right? So there are YouTubers who are still making money even after they haven't made any video for like a year because their previous videos, people are watching it. And so that's a time where it's like compounding. So yeah, so right now working at the job definitely pays more. YouTube hasn't started paying more at that point. Which do I prefer? I honestly like both. I like both. I think working at a job, especially if you like what you're doing, is one part of engineering where you're building for large scale systems, right? It's like I'm building things that I know millions and billions of people will use, and I get to understand and see the intricacies behind that, right? I enjoy knowing how the technical aspects work. I enjoy knowing how if you open Microsoft Word, what's happening behind the scenes to make Microsoft Word an application. When you save, when you send a document from one place to another, what's happening behind the scenes, right? Within that whole tech, right? I enjoy the back end side more than just using it. So I think working for a company gives you that insight as to how software is built at scale, right? How they ensure that 200 million people are using the same thing and it's still running. That's what I enjoy. But the other side, the other end of things, I also enjoy teaching. I enjoy sharing knowledge. I enjoy having conversations about what I learned on knowing how 200 million people can use something. So on the YouTube side, I get to be more creative and saying, okay, I'm going to work on this project just so I understand this and share it with people, and then, build a community of people who are also interested in what I do. Sorry, interested in programming and interested in tech, right? So I definitely enjoy both sides of it.
Yeah, awesome. And funny enough, I think that's one of the things that even inspired me to start learning programming, because when I remember the first time I saw a computer, I was really interested in knowing how the thing worked behind the scenes instead of just using it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that
Mm-hmm.
part, that point you made about teaching, that is very important, sharing the knowledge that you have, like, is the most important thing ever. So thank you so much for sharing your
Yeah.
knowledge with the world. And you said you prefer working for Microsoft, like, yeah, like, well, you're working for Microsoft. I mean, who wouldn't prefer, who wouldn't want to work for Microsoft? I mean, that's really huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, what is your advice for those starting to learn programming, or those who haven't gone that far? Because you're a teacher. Yeah.
Those, yeah, those starting to learn. So there are multiple parts to it, right? So the first is your motivation behind learning. Um, I think for a while, the annotation behind, or not annotation, what typically comes with programming is, oh, learn how to code. There's a lot of jobs, you make money from it, you're not doing you might not be doing a lot of work, but you'll make a lot of money, right? That's where
Yeah.
the money is. It's like a high paying job, stuff like that. And that's absolutely true. You can make a decent amount of money, more than the average person, as a developer, depending on the company and, depending on how things are. But if you're new to it and you want to do it strictly for money, the money, sorry, the motivation that you're using to do it for money has to be strong to push you, or has to be strong to keep you going when things get hard, right? So I'll give you an example. There will be so many times during your learning journey where it'll get hard. I'm not saying this to scare people away. I'm not saying, if you sat down to write code, if you sat down to understand, if you sat down the learning process, you understand what I'm talking about, right? And if your motivation behind it is money,
When-
then make sure that motivation is strong enough to keep you going, or at least have you come back when things get hard. And so you have to kind of, you know, figure out what that motivation is, right? Intrinsic motivation typically goes way longer than value motivation, right? So if you're doing it because you enjoy it, if you're doing it because, excuse me, if you're doing it because you enjoy it, if you're doing it because you genuinely love it, right? You want to know more, right? Then you are more likely to stick with it when you start, peeling back the layers and realize, okay, this thing is very, very complicated. I love that complicated nature, and that's why I want to keep going. And as opposed to this thing, I'm doing it for money, man. It's getting hard. Is the money that I'll even get from it worth it? Then you give up, and that's completely fine as well, right? It's okay to come in, try it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. Then you move on to something else. That's fine. But I guess what I'm trying to say is figure out what your motivation is and let your motivation drive you as you push through. The second advice is it's not a linear process, right? It's a lot of people think, all right, I start today, but maybe I learn this, I learn this, I learn this. By X day, I'm going to get a job. You could get a job in 4 months, or it could take you years to get a job as a programmer, depending on so many factors, depending on how fast you're learning, depending on what the market looks like, depending on luck, right? Luck is a huge aspect a lot of people don't talk about, depending on how you network, depending on you know, how you show yourself, how you present yourself. There's so many aspects to it. And so just again, let that motivation fuel you when things get tough, right? It's computer science programming is very abstract, right? If I have like an apple, for example, right? This is an apple, this is an airport. If I have this and I drop it and it falls, then in physics, I can tell you that is the forces of
Right.
gravity acting on it, right? Then it makes sense, right? Anything I put is going to fall. In programming, they tell you a string is this thing. And you're like, why is it called a string? We still don't know, right? But it's abstract to the point where you just have to understand it and keep going with it, right? Like just be comfortable not knowing a lot of things or not knowing why things are that way. And eventually, in the future, things then start to add up, right? Things then start to say, oh, okay, I understand why, strings are immutable, or I understand why this data structure is this way, I understand why this thing is this way, right? Things that I learned when I was in college is now that I'm finally kind of like understanding how things are coming together sometimes. And that's just the process, right? So just be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Not knowing, and let your motivation, whatever it is, fuel you through your learning process.
Awesome advice. Like I can't add anything to this. Like you said everything from beginning to end. And that money motivation part, yeah, just starting. Take that to heart. So
Absolutely.
now for the last question. Are you scared of AI? I mean you work for an AI company. So are you scared of AI? Give us some insider information.
Um, Scared, I think scared is a big word. I think AI will cause some disruption for sure. Not at the scale a lot of people are thinking it's going to be. I don't think, I think there will be some displacement of jobs, right? Like, okay, maybe a team who would typically need 15 developers may need only 10 because with developers using AI as a tool, they can be more productive to get things done faster, right? Now, it doesn't mean they're going to play out the whole, software engineering department, right? Similar to how in the past, before the whole, .NET era and before the whole .NET boom, um, accountants used to literally write things down pen and paper and use like there were people whose jobs were to calculate things, right? Like there were human beings whose job were just to calculate, like punch numbers on a calculator and hit enter and enter. Now, their jobs essentially kind of got replaced with things like Excel spreadsheets and like accounting tools, but that doesn't mean accountants aren't needed, right?
Yeah.
So it's a similar process where if what you're doing is simple enough where an AI system or an AI tool can replace it, then yeah, there may be some displacements there, but ultimately, I don't think it'll cause a whole replacement, right? I don't think, they'll like companies will just remove AI, software engineers or whatever profession and just replace with AI. Right now, it's the people who aren't doing things that are complicated enough because humans, there's still humans needed in that whole process, in that whole chain. Um, yeah, I'm not scared. I think there'll be some displacement, and I think learning how to integrate AI into products in a way that makes sense is also a great skill to learn right now, right? So a lot of tools, a lot of text-based applications, like I use Grammarly to edit the grammar from my scripts. Sometimes I'm trying to convey something in a way that's like, oh, like I write it down, it doesn't read good, and I just highlight it and I tap Grammarly, and Grammarly uses AI to,
Figure it.
reform the sentence in a way that looks good. That's absolutely good, right? Um, AI going through like a video call, for example, and summarizing the key parts, that's good, right? That's how AI will integrate into products, make things better. But as far as replacing people, some, but I don't think it'll cause the whole scale replacement. So I'm not scared. I'm actually excited to see what it comes out with.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really hot take. So thank you so much for being doing this. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. I cannot thank you enough for talking to us and sharing your knowledge with our developers and the world. And any last word, any last thing that you want to say in our next few minutes together?
Yep. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's all.
thank you so much. Have you ever been to Nigeria?
I am from Nigeria. I was born in Nigeria. I was born and
Oh,
raised in Nigeria.
yeah.
I was born in Jos, actually. I went to school in Baptist High School. Then, yeah, I was born in Jos. I'm
Wow.
originally from Kogi State.
Yeah.
But I was born in Jos, went to Baptist High School. Then after high school, after secondary school, that's when I left and came to the US.
Yeah.
But I was in Nigeria last year, actually.
That's
Yeah,
that's that's
so from Nigeria.
that's really crazy. Funny enough, I'm recording from Jos.
Yeah. Which part of Jos?
Perengada.
Oh, that's wild. That's
Yeah.
wild.
So
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
expect me there with you very soon. I'll come and visit very soon.
absolutely.
Okay, so thank you so much for your
Absolutely.
time. Thank you so much for your effort. Like, thank you so much. Wow, this is really some inspirational stuff. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And
If you have any questions, yeah, people can find me on social media. Feel free to send me a DM. If it's direct, straightforward, and ask the questions, more
yeah,
than happy to
yeah,
answer.
definitely. I'll be leaving a link to all his social media handles and his channel. Follow him, please, guys. Follow him, DM him, watch his videos, subscribe to his channel, and just connect with him more there. And I guess we'll talk more when the time comes. Thank you so much again.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate
All
it.
right. So take care.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye.